Hello, friends, and welcome again to another episode of the Dubcast with Dubside. I'm Andrew Olazaga.
And I'm Dubside.
So welcome back, Dubside. How was your trip to Minnesota?
Yeah, just went to the Minnesota Gathering. I guess nowadays they call it the Traditional Paddlers Gathering instead of the Minnesota Gathering. This is my, fifth or sixth time going to that one? Yeah, it's about 2 or 3 hours north of St. Paul, Minneapolis. They have a harpoon orientation there that they're into, along with all the rolling and ropes. And they have it's a scout camp, and they have on Saturday they have some Boy Scouts come through.
Oh, cool!
And we show that I think they're doing their canoe and kayaking merit badge, and we show them making a skin on frame, and we have them throwing harpoons, and we show them the Greenland rope gymnastics, which they're not going to get anywhere else. Any other scout program doing canoeing or kayaking, so they're keen on seeing
Wow,
that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Was it a big troop?
Well, they take it's one of these summer scout camps, and so there's a guy, one or two scout guys who coordinate, adults, and they bring in some troops from other parts of the state, I guess, from a wide area.
Oh.
So we get different troops every year. I think this was 2 different troops. And it was just a handful. It was less than 10 scouts. But we usually we divide them into 2 groups, and then the one group does on water stuff while the other group is doing the land stuff. The harpoon and ropes and stuff. We throw harpoons on land just to get a feel for that, and then they switch in the afternoon. They go to the other group comes off the water, and they seem to be quite intrigued by this weird subset of normal paddling.
But you were a member of the Boy Scouts once, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Yes, back in the day. Yeah, I didn't make Eagle Scout. Our troop kind of totally fell apart. But it was we changed from one scoutmaster to a different scoutmaster. And the second guy, some kid's father, but he wasn't really didn't have.
Yeah. Did you ever go to any of these summer camps or Boy Scout jamborees?
Oh yeah. We went to summer camps. For that was 3 or 4 years I was there. Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, I never made it farther than Webelos.
Uh-huh.
I was a really good shot, though, with a .22.
Uh-huh.
How was the attendance at the traditional gathering?
We had between 20 or 30 people. That's generally a somewhat smaller event. Up to 40 or so is full for them. But it was a little bit scaled back from normal. But they had the normal camp that they usually have it at, and a bunch of the regulars I'd seen years past, and some new people too. So everybody had a good time. We were on the on-water stuff, the land stuff, the evening. We had the bonfire thing. It's a good-sized lake there, but the lake was down several feet because for the water drought conditions kind of thing. So we didn't get a rolling demonstration because the dock was so far from deeper water to roll that nobody could stand on the shore and watch. So I did my usual ropes demonstration. That was well received.
Wow, that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, you have so many activities and you have to squeeze them in all as much. I was doing the yoga in the mornings, which they always seem to stick yoga in the early mornings, which means that people who are late risers just don't get to participate.
Yeah.
Too much else going on during the day to stop for yoga. So,
anybody demonstrating paddle making or kayak building?
Somebody had a skin on frame that they were redoing parts of. So he had the Boy Scouts showing them how you tie the lashings on, and drilling holes and things like that. It's an interesting process to see up close.
So what was the highlight of the event for you?
Well, they have the auctions is another thing they do. So they'll have a silent auction, table full of items for a silent auction, and then they'll have sometimes they'll have a raffle, and sometimes they'll have a live auction. Was it last year, the year before? They did Kayak Jeopardy, which is based on the TV show, however that works. But I guess there's some software app you can just plug in your own questions and it projects on the screen. You take this square for 2 points or however that works. And that was fun. It was educational. A lot of there were Greenland words in there. Everybody was wanting me to be on their team because I could help with that. But so this time they made a kayak bingo, you paid whatever for a bingo card, and then they had these prizes for the if you got bingo. They had this real nice a changing robe that people have made. You can change your clothes underneath that. It's really elaborate with all the fringes in this weird orange color, and then they had this. Somebody made a cutting board, like for cutting vegetables, but they had laser engraving thing. Like they had all the like a map of the Arctic and the different kayaks from the different regions of the Arctic. It was very very intricately done. Yeah, and then the third thing was a paddle. It was a very nicely made wooden paddle with these nice hardwood ends on it. And I think it was like the Eastern Greenland style ends where the tip sticks off the edges a little bit farther than the edge of the blade, which is that duplicates. Some of the bones on the Eastern Greenland paddles were made that way for some reason.
That's one thing I miss about going to those events is all the kayaks and all the accessories that people are able to make. Just an amazing amount of craftsmanship and creativity.
Yeah. So the big workshop was that they were making kayak robes. Now this is something that the Walden Pond Scum, whichever episode that was, what I talked about. At some point, they would make robes. It had some black fleece material, and you could make it. It's like a big like poncho with the sides sewn shut kind of a thing. And then you can you get off the water, you just put that on. You can change your clothes underneath that, and then pull it off. And it's nice and warm too when you get off cold water. So it's a very handy thing to have. And they've made these for several years. They'll have them on the auction table. They're very desirable to have. So this particular event in Minnesota, they had a workshop. You could make your own robe, and they brought in several sewing machines and had all this fabric. And they, for took like a day or two, you cut it out and measure it, and then do up the seams. And the cutting it just right for the hood takes some expertise. You can't kind of guess at that, so you need some help with how to set that up and how to cut it. And some people making pockets on them, and one woman, she put a Greenland flag on the front of her, on the front pocket, kind of thing, a big Greenland flag. Very nice. Yeah, they've done some years. They'll make a tuilik or tuislit is the plural, and they have neoprene, and you cut and you sew the neoprene and put that together. But these were changing robes is a little bit different.
Yeah, wow, that's worth the price of admission right there. Those changing robes.
Yeah.
My friend Katya has made a couple of them, and they're very useful for changing in public and parks and parking lots and warming up after a cold paddle.
Some good thick fleece keeps you nice and warm.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time I saw those, I thought that was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Well, very cool.
Mm-hmm. So what's this week's episode? I can't keep track of all.
So this week's episode is traveling to Copenhagen for the Greenland and Tivoli event.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then you talk about Rasmus Lyberth.
Rasmus Lubit, very fine musician.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on with it then.
All right.
Welcome to the Dubcast with Dubside. This is Dubcast number 13, in which I will tell you about my kayaking and Greenland-related experiences in Copenhagen, Denmark. And I will tell you about probably the most enduringly successful Greenland musician, whose credits include being asked to perform at the Royal Albert Hall in London. Well, the country of Denmark has had a long relationship with Greenland, going back to more than 200 years or so. Greenland was a protectorate of Denmark, making Denmark the colonizing power, which is why to this day there is a heavy influence of Denmark in Greenland, in all of Greenland society. And Greenlanders generally speak Danish as well as Greenlandic. The government administrative tasks were all done by Denmark until the early 1970s, when, at the demand of the Greenlanders, they were granted home rule, it's called, so the Greenland could control the government internally, and Denmark did it internationally. And then in 2011, the vote was taken, and Greenland voted to become completely independent of Denmark, their own country. And that process is still ongoing because Denmark was heavily subsidizing the Greenland economy, and so without that subsidy, has to be replaced by something. They've had oil and mineral exploration, so they're working on that, working towards complete independence. But due to this long-term relationship between Greenland and Denmark, there are many Greenlanders living in Denmark. The huge population of Danes in Denmark tends to dwarf the small number of Greenlanders that live there, but they're there. And in the town of Copenhagen, the city of Copenhagen, largest city in Denmark, there are pockets of Greenlanders spread throughout. And in the middle of Copenhagen, right across from the main train station, occupying an entire city block, is I think the name is Tivoli Gardens. I think it is Tivoli Amusement Park. It's an amusement park that's been there for at least 100 years. It goes way, way back. And there are the rides, roller coasters and things, and there's the arcade games, many different restaurants and eateries in there. There's a big stage. They have international acts come through performing in there, and it is quite the thriving tourist attraction. And in the middle of these rides and well-kept gardens, there's a pretty good-sized pond with some restaurants on the edge of it and little walkways and benches you can sit down. And there's a little themed pirate ship on the water there. And along the walkway, there are these little machines like gumball machines. You put it, in this case, a 10 or 20 kroner piece, Danish kroner coin. Turn the handle, and out comes a handful of it looks like dog food, but it's for throwing into the pond for the fish to eat. And the fish in this pond are rather unique. They are, I think they're, the carp species, the goldfish that grow quite, they go up to like a foot long with all that space to exercise. So I would imagine that these generations of fish have never seen a hook on anything. So all they know is that human beings are those things that up on land that throw food. And so these fish, when they see food being thrown into the water, they come up and they eat all the food that's in the water already, and then they open their mouths as wide as possible and stick their heads up out of the water. So you see all these fish, all these mouths of fish open wide, staring back at you, waiting for you to throw some food. It's never seen that anywhere else. And they've got ducks in the pond too, just as tame as the fish. The story goes that some Greenlanders a long time ago living in Copenhagen wanted to get together, and they decided to meet the beginning of one August in Tivoli. And then they did the same thing the next year. And then other longtime friends who hadn't seen each other in quite a while, they all sort of got back together in Tivoli. And this kept growing, Greenlanders coming together the beginning of August every summer in Tivoli. And eventually the people running the amusement park decided to make it official and bill it as Greenland in Tivoli. And they began bringing in Greenland musical acts to perform on the big stage. And they brought in people selling Greenland crafts and gifts and things, and made it quite a festive thing. And it expanded to 3 days. So it would be July 30th, July 31st, and August 1st. And it turned into an annual tradition. Copenhagen is a city with a downtown area crisscrossed with canals. It's not exactly Venice, but there is a major waterway network going all through the middle of Copenhagen. And there's people rowing, people paddling, people with motorboats, people with sailboats, everything you can think of. So there is a club in Copenhagen called Qajaq Copenhagen, Qajaq Qajaq. And this, like Kayak USA, Qajaq USA, is a recognized branch of Qajaq, the Greenland Kayak Association. So they have skin-on-frame kayaks, and they're doing the Greenland thing in Copenhagen. Remember Pavia Lumholt, who I told you about? He, after he moved back from Greenland to Denmark, he was involved with Qajaq Copenhagen for some years before he got too busy with his doctor's studies. Well, after I had passed through Copenhagen on an annual basis for a couple years, I found out that the committee that puts on Greenland in Tivoli every year had started contracting with Qajaq Copenhagen to do a rolling demonstration, Greenland kayak rolling demonstration, in that pond in the middle of Tivoli. And they were putting on a rolling show 3 times a day. I think it was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 4 o'clock for each of the 3 days. And it was somewhat difficult for them to find people that could fill all those days of some, if August 1st, that time period falls on a weekday, people have jobs to do. So me, having some rolling skills, I was pulled into it to help them out. And so I rolled in the pond in Tivoli with the fish. The fish, I guess, we didn't bring anything to feed them, so they left us alone. They swam off to the far corners while we were in the middle with our kayaks doing the rolling demonstration. At that point, the people making up Qajaq Copenhagen were pretty much all Danes. And I felt a little awkward doing a rolling demonstration for Greenlanders as an American with a bunch of Danes in the kayaks. And I recall one time one of the Greenlanders, when I got out, was talking to me, and he was a bit perturbed that it wasn't a Greenlander in the water doing the rolling. And I was, please bring somebody. If you got anybody who wants to do this from Greenland, bring them on. I'd be happy to see that. But it just didn't quite work out the way. The very skilled rollers in Greenland weren't in Copenhagen that particular time, and the Danes just stepped up and asked me to help them. So that's the way it worked out. We did have an older Greenlander guy help. He was doing the narration. Sometimes he would get in the water to roll with us, and he could announce things in Greenlandic. But when he wasn't available, they would just have somebody in Danish announcing what we were doing. We usually had 3, sometimes 4 kayaks in the water, and we tried to be creative with some new tricks and ideas. And usually the finale involved, I think we got a Greenland flag, a little Greenland flag, and I would roll with the flag, instead of keeping the candle out of the water, keeping the flag out of the water. And they would, I believe one year people would take pictures of these things. And there was a picture of me upside down with the flag sticking out, and that was on the promo poster for next year. One part of that promo poster, you could see a picture of the kayak upside down with the Greenland flag. But the real feature of the Greenland and Tivoli festivities was the musical acts that would perform there. And I saw that band Nanook I told you about last time. The first time I saw them perform was there, the big stage in Tivoli. It was an amazing show. And I've seen quite a few Greenland acts that I have their CDs of, and I see them live, and it's quite an experience. Of all the musicians in Greenland, there is one guy who is pretty much in a category all by himself. And his name is Rasmus Lubit. We would pronounce that Rasmus Lyberth, but in Greenland the R is a bit softer. Rasmus Lubit. RASMUS And he has a tremendous voice. His music has something of a spiritual quality to it. For several years now, they've had me lead the yoga at some of the Kayak USA events, whether it's at Delmarva or Styx out in Seattle or some of the other ones. And I had to tell them up front, I'm not certified to lead yoga, but they weren't concerned about that. It was like Helen Wilson wasn't at the event, or if Sherry Perry wasn't there, the certified people that they have me lead the yoga, and people seem to enjoy it. So I made a soundtrack, for yoga music to have something to put you in the mind of the yoga postures, and I have one of just Rasmus Lyberth's music. He has some of his songs are a bit more lively, but I selected the ones that are quiet enough, and there's enough of his things alone to fill up an hour of things to do yoga by. It works very well for that purpose. Well, I had the opportunity to see Rasmus Lyberth performing in concert once at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And I saw him there. I talked to him a little bit beforehand, and he doesn't speak really fluent English. He can sort of converse, but he's not fluent in English. So he speaks Danish and Greenlandic. He gets out on stage, and I don't know if he's performed to American audiences a whole lot, but he says before he starts, I sing in my native language. You are not going to understand what I'm saying, but just close your eyes and we will go to the stars. And we did. He's got that kind of voice. Over the course of his career, a long, distinguished career he's had, he's done recorded a few songs in Danish, but primarily he records in Greenlandic. And so he had put out some time back this album called Hey Hey. The English words Hey Hey, H-E-Y, H-E-Y. He can sprinkle a few English phrases into some of his lyrics. And so the album is Rasmus Lubit Band Hey Hey. And there was one song on there that, you know how you'll hear a song a couple times and it doesn't really hit you until you heard it maybe a few times. And this song really showcases all the finest parts of his talent and what an amazing vocalist he is. So the song is entitled Akunek Atasek Namangilak, and he has the English translation in the CD notes. And I won't read all of them, but the idea is, it says, an hour is not enough to explain to anyone who you are. You are a feeling that can change my life completely. My dreams command me to talk about it. Wondrous life commands me to learn about it. I am sure that I must be with you. I just love you so much, you, the being of my nightly dreams. So the English translation, in the first phrase, talks about the girl of my dreams. So they've entitled the song Girl of My Dreams, but I know a little Greenlandic, and so Akunek Atasek Namangilak, that does not translate to Girl of My Dreams. That translates to 1 hour. Akunek, an hour. Atasek, 1. Namangilak is not enough. So 1 hour is not enough, which is one of the lines in the English translation. An hour is not enough. And so it gives you an idea that sort of spiritual quality, the uplifting quality of his music. And once I really got a hand on this particular song, it became my new favorite Rasmus Lubit song. The following year, he was on the bill as the headline feature performer for Greenland in Tivoli. And I was really looking forward to seeing him in concert again and hearing that song. And so in the way it works there's an open field of grass, and there's a couple benches in the front next to the big high stage. And they'll have various acts throughout the afternoon. And then from about 5 to 6 or 7 o'clock, there's nothing going on. You can go get some food at all the restaurants. And then the main show, the big evening show, starts at 7:30, 8 o'clock and goes till 10 o'clock with the headliner, the last on the bill. So it was Rasmus Lubit would be playing last. And given that there aren't any chairs lined up in the field, it's just grass, so you can bring a blanket or just sit on the grass or stand the whole time. But there are 3 rows of benches right up front with an aisle in the middle, so it's six sets of benches that people will take them up, occupy them fairly early. So if you want to get a seat there, you have to stake it out ahead of time. So I wanted to see Rasmus Lyberth from the comfort of a seat, And so about 5 o'clock, I took a seat when they were all available at that hour. You had a couple hours to wait. So the right front row center, just on one side of the aisle, left side of the aisle, and just sat there and waited for 2.5, 3 hours for showtime. And eventually people started filling up, with about half an hour, 45 minutes to go, the seats started filling up, and there's all the seats are gone, and people are finding, putting their blankets out on the lawn, and the crowd gathering for the show. And the earlier acts come on, and so there's a guy next to me who's rather, in the lively spirit of things. Well, all right, I can't put it any other way. He was drunk, and in carrying on as drunken people do, as the acts progressed into the evening, he's wants the people around him to feel the way he does, just how joyous it is and crazy fun. So I feel this elbow. He's poking me in the side since he's right next to me. And not being, I don't drink anyway, so I just wasn't really on his wavelength. So I just sort of turned away, tried to ignore him. And 5 or 10 minutes later, I get this elbow again in the side, and still giving him the cold shoulder, hoping he'll go away. And I could have just gotten up and left, but I would lose my seat. I've got a couple hours invested in this front row seat that I wanted to keep, and if I walk away, I've just wasted all that. So I continued to sit there. Now I didn't tell you one thing. The guy, he was right in the aisle there, and he was there because he was in a wheelchair, and that was he could just roll his chair right up there and have a front row seat because he brought his own seat with him. So a guy in a wheelchair poking me in the side, very annoying. Now besides poking me in the side, he was also screaming out. He was go "Ayuga, Ayuga," which is that's a Greenlandic word. That's like victory or win or champion. So it's like a victory cry. So it's something you could just scream out when you're feeling good. Ayuga, and I had wanted to preserve this Rasmus Lyberth concert so I could enjoy it later on, and I had brought my little recording device to tape the concert and make my own bootleg recording. I don't know if that's allowed or not, but that's what I did. And now I realize that his screaming things out is getting on my recording and is going to mess up the music that I'm trying to capture. Well, the next time he jostled me with the elbow, I turned face on, and I said something to him in English, which I think he would understand even if he didn't speak English, and then turned away. And a few minutes later, I feel he hits me. He clocks me on the side of the head, just from the blind side. Boom. And now I've, his physical assault here. So I figured I could go to the security people. They have it's Tivoli. They've got the guys in the hats with the Tivoli in there. The security people. You could find one of those people and say, there's an incident here. But I figured, well, I'd be missing that much of the concert because Rasmus is about to come on, as well as giving up my seat. And then I was imagining that they would take me in their office somewhere and say, okay, sir, so what happened, sir? You say someone attacked you? You say someone in a wheelchair attacked you? Right. So that's probably not going to play out too well. So I got up. I left. I gave up my seat that I had spent hours trying to hold on to and moved away to get away from this guy in the wheelchair who would hit me on the side of the head. And so at that point, Rasmus was about to come on stage. And I was feeling in my head, all you got to do, thinking to saying to Rasmus in my mind, like, just play that song. Just play that one song. That's all I need to hear. That's all you got to do. Play me that song. Sing that song. And then I don't care what else you do after that. You can walk off stage after that one song and I can go home after that. I just want to hear that one song. And he came on, and the first song he did was that song. Now, since I recorded that, and since to do as I've done in past Dubcast, representation of the music that I talk about, it would be sacrilege for me to attempt to sing like Rasmus does. So I'm going to play you a little piece of this. We can relive that moment together. I'm not going to play the whole song because I want you to go buy the CD. But here's something of what it sounded like that night.
Det er altid fornøjelse at byde ham velkommen. Så velkommen til Qajaq København. Her er litteren av sortartut. I bidder sortartut. Der fjortartut. Der njortartut. Ittorsuet. Rasmus Lyberth.
So now you know what I'm talking about. That voice is a Greenland national treasure. And there in the background we hear I think that may be Aviaya Lumholt. Remember her from that song by Uaka, Aviaya, Pavia Lumholt's sister. She performs live in concert often with Rasmus Lyberth. Well, it was a very uplifting show. He went on to perform another 7 or 8 songs, and I went home to the place I was staying in Copenhagen then, and feeling very satisfied and uplifted. And I urge you to purchase this CD. It's atlanticmusic.gl. It's Rasmus Lyberth Band. CD is called Hey Hey. All right, I'm going to have to turn that off. Sorry about that. But you got to buy the CD. We can't shortchange the artist. As I said before, it's quite a challenge for a Greenlander to make a career as a musician. And Rasmus Lubit has done it to his credit, and done it by singing in his native language. I can also recommend the CD, I think, that preceded Hey Hey. And that one's called Asanakigavit, which is the title track. That's a very fine song as well. Asanakigavit, translating to Because You're Lovely. And I can also recommend something else with Rasmus Lyberth in it. From time to time, they have made feature-length films in Greenland in Greenlandic with English subtitles. And one of the early ones, it was called Heart of Light. And it's, I think the film was made sometime in 1998, and the DVD came out in 2005. I got it in this country, ordering it from a video place, which those video places that are all out of business now because nobody buys DVDs anymore, but maybe you can find it online somewhere. It's called Heart of Light. And Rasmus Lubit plays the lead role, plays it very well too. Surprisingly, they do not use his musical talents. I mean, there's a feature soundtrack and there's other people doing musical things in there, but he doesn't sing any lines in the movie. And the storyline. It's the Arctic theme of the clash between the traditional values of a traditional society and the modern ways, and how you're going to negotiate that, and how much you're going to accept and abandon from tradition and modern. And the role that Rasmus plays, it's a family man who fashions himself as a great hunter, but is not much of a hunter. And there's some family tragedies involved, and so he goes on this quest out into the hills to sort of come to terms with his history. And you remember when I talked about the first time I competed in Greenland on the rope gymnastics, they were calling out "Kivitok," like as if I had superpowers. Well, in this movie there is a real Kivitok, and you get more of a sense of what that character, what that Kivitok concept involves. And so it's if you've disgraced yourself to escape from the shame, you just abandon the village and live up in the hills. And if you survive, then you develop the superpowers. And so Rasmus' character encounters this old man living up in the hills, and it further explains how he came to be a Kivitok. And that'll wrap up episode number 13. And I just can't recommend Rasmus Lyberth enough. He is really about as good as it gets as far as the music of Greenland goes. Coming up in episode 14, let's talk about racing. And I'm not going to break down the racing stroke. I'll leave that to the racing experts. But I'll give you some stories about racing occurrences, some of them involving Qajaq, the Greenland racer, and some of them involving me, the not much of a Greenland racer. All right.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to give us a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions for Dubside, send us an email at dubcastwithdubside@gmail.com.